Welcome to the Daily Current Affairs by CivicCentre where we shall discuss the top 10 important topics for the UPSC CSE Prelims for the day from the Hindu, the Indian Express and the PIB. So, the first article here says that President of India Srimati Draupadi Murmu on today visited the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Dholavira in Gujarat. Know that the site is located on the arid island of Khadir. In this context, we'll talk about various aspects about the Dholavira, its unique features, and then we'll talk about the UNESCO World Heritage Sites in India in brief. So firstly, talking about Dholavira, see, as we talked just now, it is located in the Khadir Island of the Kutch district in the state of Gujarat. Now, this site of Dholavira flourished during the matured Harappan phase, and the period we can say it is as 3000 BC to 1500 BC. Furthermore, the excavation was done in between 1990 to 2005 by the Archaeological Survey of India under the leadership of Ravindra Singh Bisht. Furthermore, it was declared as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the year 2021. Now, why is this Dholavira significant? See, it is significant for the one reason because it is the best preserved IVC site with unique water conservation systems. Now, other than this, we have some of the unique features with respect to Dholavira. So, in that, firstly, with respect to the town planning, you can see there is a three-part division in the town planning where the parts are citadel, middle town, and the lower town. Now, how is the water conserved? We have different reservoirs, step wells, stormwater drains, and bunds for the water conservation. And you can see that the urban planning was done very properly with wide roads, rock-cut architecture, and we also had open spaces. Now, if we have to look at the distinct feature of this Dholavira or the Harappa site of Dholavira, you have to say, or you can say that it's the largest known Harappan stadium like structure. It has the largest known Harappan stadium like structure. And there is evidence of Harappan script that trade and economy flourished, and the trade links were established with the Mesopotamian civilization. Now, moving forward, you can say that this Dholavira is the only IVC civilization site in India to get this UNESCO Heritage Site status. So, this supports the conservation initiatives under the Ministry of Culture and also the Archaeological Survey of India. Now, moving on to talk about the UNESCO World Heritage Sites in India. See, the UNESCO designates the sites of the cultural, historical and environmental significance as the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. You know that the UNESCO stands for United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. Now, there are three different categories under it, which are the cultural sites, the natural sites and the mixed sites. Now, at present in India, we have a total of 42 sites designated as the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, in which 34 are cultural, 7 are natural, and 1 is a mixed site. Now, you have to know that recently there were few additions. These were the recent additions to the India's list, which are Dholavira, Ramappa Temple, and Shanti Niketan. Now, for every topic, you can see similar topics which could be asked in the exam. So for this topic, the related topics which you can refer to are the excavations in the Rakhigiri, which is the largest IVC in India, which was in use in 2023. And the recent discoveries at the Lothal in the year 2024. Then the US, as we just talked about, the UNESCO's recognition of Shantiniketan in the 2023. And how the government is revamping the heritage sites with the conservation policies. Okay. Now, moving on to the second article. Now, what does the second article say? The second article says that in a landmark move to strengthen the regional connectivity, the Civil Aviation Ministry launched its aircraft Boeing 737 flight from Kolkata, Hindon, Goa on 1st March of 2025. So, in this context, we'll talk about the project UDAN. See, what is this UDAN stands for? This UDAN stands for Uday Desh Ka Aam Naagrik. It was launched in the year 2016 by the Ministry of Civil Aviation, which is the nodal ministry for the scheme. Now, what is the main objective of the scheme? See, this scheme mainly aims to improve the regional connectivity. Improve the regional connectivity, making the air travel more affordable to Naagrik, which means the common man. Now, who is implementing it? This scheme is implemented by the Airport Authorities of India, and the funding model is a subsidy model where the funding is shared between the center and the states through viability gap funding for the airlines operating in the regional routes. Why is this scheme significant? What is the significance of this scheme? See, firstly, it will enhance the regional connectivity connecting the small towns to metro cities. And secondly, it will boost the economic development. Through the rise in the domestic tourism. And lastly, it encourages air travel by providing affordability to the or in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And apart from that, it's going to create employment, right? And it is going to promote the India's rankings in the ease of doing business. Now, the Air Force, whichever is there, is playing a significant role in this scheme. How is it doing it? See, the Hindon base, whichever we have, it is one of the largest military air bases now open for the civilian use. Now, by Air Force supporting this kind of initiatives, it will provide airstrips for the civilian flights and using the military infrastructure for the disaster relief and logistics, ultimately contributing to the national development through aviation reforms. Now, what is the importance of using this dual-use airports? It is important because firstly, it will reduce the congestion at the major airports, right? And secondly, it utilizes the existing infrastructure whichever is there for the civilian use. And lastly, it's going to strengthen the national security. And together it's going to support the economic growth also. Now, with respect to this topic, the similar topics you can refer to are UDAN scheme expansion, which was done in 2024, and the success reports, and how the India's aviation sector has grown, and also the regional connectivity, which you can refer to the economic survey, and then the development of greenfield and brownfield airports, and also the Air Force role in the disaster management and strategic connectivity, and how the public-private partnership is helping to the aviation sector in India to grow. Right. Now, moving forward with the third article. Third article says that the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, in collaboration with Niti Aayog, has launched the scheme Swavalambini, which is a woman entrepreneurship program at the Chaudhary Charan Skin University at Meerut, which is a significant step towards strengthening the woman entrepreneurship in India. In this context, we'll talk about the scheme. See, firstly, what is the scheme all about? See, the scheme, which was launched by the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, and as I told, in partnership with Niti Aayog, has three main objectives. So the first objective is to encourage young women entrepreneurs through structured skill training. And secondly, to provide mentorship, financial assistance, and incubation support to such women entrepreneurs. And thirdly, to enhance the women's participation in India's economic development. Now, how is this scheme implemented? See, this scheme is being implemented by the National Institute for Entrepreneurship and Small Business Development, which will act as the nodal agency for the implementation of the scheme, and it's going to follow a structured approach, a structured multi-stage training approach, where the first stage, you can see entrepreneurship awareness program, where the basic introduction to business concepts is given. And secondly, we have the Women Entrepreneurship Development Program, where a 40-hour training for the selected participants is given. And lastly, Faculty Development Program, where the training of mentors is done to sustain the impact of this particular scheme. Now, there are other schemes which have been asked in the exam or which can be asked in the news, like the Women Entrepreneurship Platform by the Niti Aayog, Mudra Yojana, which is also for providing the support for the startups, and the Stand Up India scheme. Right. Now, moving forward with the next article, it says that taking cognizance of certain reports that electors in two different states were getting same voter ID numbers, the Election Commission of India on Sunday said, irrespective of epic number, a person can cast a vote only at their designated polling stations in their respective constituencies, in their states or union territories. So, first of all, what are the issues in this electoral rolls and why the reforms are needed? See, we are facing issues like the duplicate voter IDs, bogus and migrant voting, and electoral fraud allegations. Now, the Election Commission has proposed few reforms to address these challenges. Like first one is the linking the voter ID with the Aadhaar card, linking the voter ID with the Aadhaar card. And secondly, the uniform epic number series across all states. And thirdly, centralized digital voter roll management. See, what is the issue with this duplicate voter IDs? Multiple issues were issued. Multiple IDs were issued due to past manual processes. And with respect to the bogus and migrant voting, we have seen challenges in verifying the voters who are moved states. And lastly, the electoral fraud allegations were that the claims of vote rigging and poll manipulation. So these are the issues and these are the proposed reforms. And now let us briefly touch upon the powers of ECI. See, the Election Commission of India was established under the Article 324 of the Constitution, and it mandates to conduct free and fair elections for the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, state legislative assemblies, and the president and the vice president elections. Now, what is the Election Commission composed of? It has one chief election commissioner and two election commissioner. And note that the appointments are done by the President of India under Article 324, Clause 2. Remember these articles, they are very important for prelims. Now, firstly talking about the elector's photo identification ID, in short called the EPIC ID. See, it is issued by the Election Commission of India and it is a 10-digit alphanumeric number assigned to every registered voter. Now, you have to know that this EPIC is a proof of identity but not citizenship. Now, significantly, the voter can cast the vote only in their enrolled constituencies. And we have another initiative called the Electronic Roll Management Network, in short called the Aeronet 2.0. Now, what is this all about? See, the objective of this initiative is to digitize the electoral rolls to eliminate duplications and also the fraudulent registrations which are being done with respect to Election Commission. Know that this platform is developed by the Election Commission of India. Now, what are the features of this particular platform? First thing, through this platform, real-time verification and database integration can be done. And secondly, it prevents some multiple registrations of the same individual. And thirdly, it supports multiple languages and scripts for electoral roll arrangements. So, do you think these features are going to address the issues with respect to the issues which we have identified? Please let me know in the comments. Now, the topics which you can further study are the voter ID and Aadhaar linking proposal, electoral bond scheme which was banned last year, and also the political funding debates with respect to it, and the proposal of the One Nation, One Voter ID, and the Election Commission of India's role in preventing electoral malpractices. Now, moving on to the next article. This article says that the Employees Provident Fund Organization, in short called the EPFO, fears that it may have to spend 1,86,920 crore rupees to pay just 50% of the total applicants for a higher pension. In this context, we'll first talk about the EPFO, then the Employees Pension Scheme, and lastly we'll see the issues at present which are being highlighted. So, firstly talking about EPFO. See, this EPFO was established in the year 1952 and it regulates two main aspects, which are the Provident Fund, which is given to the employees, and pension schemes. Know that the nodal ministry is the Ministry for Labour and Employment, and furthermore, it is managed by the Central Board of Trustees chaired by the Labour Minister. Now, what is the mandate of EPFO? What does it mandates to do? Firstly, it manages the retirement savings. It manages the retirement savings of the salaried employees. And secondly is it administers the Employees Provident Fund. It administers the Employees Provident Fund, Employees Pension Scheme, and Employees Deposit Linked Insurance. Employees Deposit Linked Insurance. Now, moving on to talk about the Employees Pension Scheme. See, this was introduced in the year 1995 for the organized sector employees. Now, if you have to look at the contribution structure, the employer contributes 8.33% of the wages, which is up to 15,000 per month ceiling, which has a ceiling. And the employee, there is no direct contribution funded from the EPF contributions. whereas the government contributes 1.16%, capped at 15,000 of the wages. Now, what are the present issue or the Supreme Court ruling with respect to it? So the present issue of higher pension is that Supreme Court allowed employees to opt for higher pension based on actual wages and not on the ceiling wages. But the EPFO argues that the fulfilling this demand will create a massive financial burden on it. But what is the demand of these trade unions and the pensioners? See, the EPFO's liability estimates are really inconsistent, and also the labor activists demand a full implementation of the SC order. They are demanding full implementation, whereas EPFO argues that it's fulfilling this demand will create a massive financial burden, and this is the present issue with respect to it. Now, coming to the similar topics related to it, you can look at the EPFO's digital reforms and the different social security schemes like the e-Shram portal, Atal Pension Yojana and PMSYM for the unorganized workers. Then you can look at the Supreme Court verdicts on the pension reforms and labor rights, and lastly have a brief look on the Code of Social Security 2020, where the key provisions and the impact of EPFO can be observed. Now, moving on to the next article, which is the sixth article we are discussing today. It talks about the Euclid Space Telescope and the recent discovery of the Einstein ring in the nearby galaxy. So, to understand all this, first you have to understand the phenomena of the Einstein's general theory of relativity. See, this was proposed by Albert Einstein in the year 1915, where the fundamental idea lies around that the massive objects bend space-time, causing light to follow a curved path. And you can analogically look at like a heavy object disturbing the surface of the trampoline. Now, what is this phenomena of gravitational lensing? See, massive objects act as lenses, bending light from distant sources, which results in magnified, distorted and multiple images in the background objects, So for you to understand better, you can look at this video, right? Here the light is being bent and on the background you can see, right? So this is the phenomena of gravitational lensing. Now there are different types of gravitational lensing also. Like there are weak lensing, strong lensing and micro lensing. What is weak lensing? Weak lensing means small distortions in the background object images. Whereas strong lensing results in significant distortions, producing multiple images or arcs. And we also have micro lensing, where the light bending is due to the single stars or the planetary bodies, and these are the different three types of the gravitational lensing. Now, moving forward, we'll talk about the Einstein ring. So to make you understand what I'm trying to say, first look at this video. This is the video of the Einstein ring. Now, what is this Einstein ring? It is a very special case of strong gravitational lensing. And when does it occur? It occurs when a distant object, which is a foreground massive lens, and Earth align perfectly. When they align perfectly, this phenomenon can be observed, and the light from the background objects forms a circular structure around the lens like this. For you to understand better, you can look at this picture. So this is the phenomena of the Einstein ring. And talking briefly about the Euclid Space Telescope, since this was launched by the European Space Agency in the year 2023, where the primary objectives of it are to map the universe expansion and also study the dark matter and dark energy. Now, the expected discoveries are it would discover 1 lakh new gravitational lenses, and it will provide insights into the cosmic structure and dark matter distribution. Right? Now, these are the different topics which you can refer to. In this, we also included dark matter and dark energy and the Hubble Space Telescope's discoveries with respect to gravitational lensing. Now, moving forward with the 7th article of the day, which says that a private lunar lander carrying scientific instruments, including a drill and a vacuum for the NASA, successfully landed on the moon, reported the Associated Press. So, Firefly Aerospace Blue Ghost lander descended from lunar orbit on autopilot, targeting the slopes of an ancient volcanic dome in Mare Crisium, located on the northern eastern edge of the moon's near side. In this context, we'll first look at the Blue Ghost lunar lander, and then we'll talk about the soft landing of the moon and its challenges. So firstly, talking about the Blue Ghost Molar lander, see, as I talked just now, it is developed by the Firefly Aerospace, which is a private US company. Now the main mission goal of it is that to deliver the NASA's payloads to commercial payloads and commercial instruments to the moon, conduct scientific studies on the lunar surface. These are the two main mission goals. Note that the landing site, as I said, it's Mare Crisium, which is the northeastern edge on the moon's near side. Now, why is this mission significant? This is very significant because this is the first private lander to soft land upright correctly on the moon. And secondly, it is part of NASA's push for the commercial lunar missions. Now, what is the soft landing on the moon? See, soft landing on the moon is landing softly on the moon, and very few countries have achieved this milestone. So the countries that have achieved this milestone are Russia, USA, China, India, and recently in 2024 even Japan achieved this feat. So these are the only countries which were able to achieve the soft landing on the moon. But what is the main issue, or why is the soft landing very difficult? It is difficult because moon has no atmosphere. Moon has no atmosphere. So when there is no atmosphere, no parachute based deceleration can be observed. Right. Where there is no atmosphere, you cannot observe that also. Then we have many surface hazards like the boulders, uneven terrain, etc. And lastly, precise landing technology is required. Precise landing technology is required for the stability during the soft landing. So the related topics which you can refer to are Chandrayaan 3, which is India's attempt to soft land on the moon, and then NASA's Artemis program and future lunar missions, and how the growth of Indian private space sector industry is observed, and what is the private space sector industry with respect to SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Firefly Aerospace, and the role of ISRO's NSIL and InSpace initiatives in India's private sector space development. Now, the next article says that with the production-linked incentive scheme gaining traction in its first phase, the government is considering if the incentive should be linked to metrics beyond incremental scale sales such as domestic value addition and incremental imports. In this context, we'll talk about the PLI, or the production-linked incentive scheme, and the PLI 2.0. So what is this PLI all about? See, it was launched in the year 2020 of April as part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. So the main objective of it is to firstly boost the domestic manufacturing and reduce the import dependence. Secondly, to increase the exports by making Indian products more competitive. And thirdly, to encourage the foreign and domestic firms to set up production in India. Now, what is the impact of the scheme? See, the success, we can see that there was increase in the mobile phone and the pharma manufacturing. And we have also observed the growth of exports in electronics and handsets. And lastly, increased FDI inflows in manufacturing sectors. But the challenges with respect to it are low domestic value addition, limited participation of Indian companies, and reluctance of global supply chains to relocate to India. So we have proposed some enhancements in the PLI 2.0, where we are shifting from just incremental sales to encouraging domestic value addition, and also promoting incremental exports as a new criterion, and developing the local component manufacturing ecosystems. But now, why are these exports important to any particular country? See, these exports will expand the market size, making the large scale production very viable to the producers. And secondly, it encourages global supply chains to relocate to India. And thirdly, it reduces India's dependence on China and Vietnam. So these are for these reasons, the exports are very important for us. Now, moving on to the next article, and before that, these are the similar topics or the related topics which you can refer to for the exam. Now, moving on to the next article, it says that in a wonderful news for the tea enthusiasts, a new study has indicated that brewing tea can do more than just uplifting the mood or its reported anti-inflammatory properties. So the properly brewed tea may effectively filter the heavy metals like the lead and cadmium out of the liquid as well. So in this context, first we'll talk about the heavy metal contamination in water. Then we'll talk about the study findings, and we'll see what is the significance of the study. See, firstly, what are the common heavy metals found in water? We can find lead, right? Lead can be found, which will affect the brain and nervous system. And then we can find cadmium, which causes kidney damage. And then we have chromium, copper, and zinc, which are toxic at high concentrations, right? Now, what are these major sources of heavy metal contamination? The first one you can definitely say is the industrial waste, from where you can observe the battery, paint, mining, all these can be observed, right? And secondly, the agricultural runoff like the pesticides and fertilizers. And lastly, the corroded plumbing, where we have lead pipes in older infrastructure. Now, talking about the health risks with respect to heavy metals, you can say this will cause neurotoxicity. This will cause neurotoxicity, and as we talked just now, kidney damage can also be observed. And lastly, cardiovascular diseases, cardiovascular diseases affecting the heart. So these are the health risks with respect to heavy metal contamination. So for us to understand like how tea is going to affect it, you have to understand the difference between the adsorption and absorption. So what is adsorption? See, adsorption is that phenomenon where molecules adhere to a surface, as in the tea trapping heavy metals. But whereas absorption is where the molecules penetrate. Here the molecules are penetrating, here they are adhering to the surface. So absorption is observed when the molecules penetrate inside a material. So why tea works as a filter? See, the tea leaves whichever we use in home are having a high surface area. So when it has a high surface area, it will be easy for the tea to trap the metal ions. Furthermore, the cellulose based tea bags absorb more metals because they are more porous than the synthetic materials. They are more porous than the synthetic materials. Now, why is this study significant? This study is significant because the tea's ability to remove the lead and cadmium from water will remove 50% lead from water in 3 to 5 minutes. And also the higher absorption with longer steeping times can be observed, which will result in removing more metals. And lastly, finely ground black tea works best with the greater surface area. Now, what are the implications of it for the public health? See, firstly, it will result in passive reduction of heavy metal intake in populations consuming tea. And also the potential link between the tea consumption and lower cardiovascular diseases has been observed or can be proved. Now, the last article of the day, before moving on to that, so these are the different topics you can refer to, like the microplastics in drinking water, what are the various water purification techniques, and the benefits of tea consumption and the health benefits with respect to it, and like what are the issues with the heavy metal pollution in India, and the national water quality standards of the BIS guidelines and the WHO standards. So moving on to the last article, it talks about the air quality index in Delhi. So even as Delhi saw a warm February, strong winds in the city over the last 2 days lowered the maximum and minimum temperatures. Data from the Indian Meteorological Department showed on Sunday. So at 125, the city's air quality index was also in the moderate category for the third straight day on Sunday. In this context, we'll talk about the various aspects related to it. So what are the various factors influencing the temperature and climate in the cities? So firstly, you can say the urban heat island effect. Urban heat island effect. So under this effect, the concrete structures and the asphalt retain more heat than the natural reforms, and also the less vegetation whichever is there, because we have less vegetation in the urban areas, and evapotranspiration contribute to higher temperatures. And secondly, we can also talk about the role of wind in this. So when the wind speeds are high, it will help in heat dissipation. And ultimately lowering the temperature. But whereas when the wind speeds are low or the calm conditions will lead to heat accumulation, and ultimately higher night temperatures. Now, moving forward to talk about the air quality index. See, this air quality index is used for reporting daily air quality, and it tells you how clean or polluted your air is and what associated health effects might be a concern for you. So this air quality index focuses on health effects you may experience within a few hours or days after breathing polluted air. Know that it is defined by the Central Pollution Control Board, and the parameters measured are particulate matter 10, particulate matter 2.5, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, ozone, ammonia and lead. So these are the 8 parameters measured using the air quality index. And if you talk about different categories, we have, these are the different categories and these are the numbers with respect to it. So for instance, if the number is between 0 to 50, it is categorized as good, and the number like after 400 is categorized as severe. Now, what are the effects of wind? What are the effects of wind on air quality index and the pollution levels? So as I told just now, when there are high speed winds, it is going to disperse the pollutants and reduce the air quality levels. So it will help clear the suspended particulate matter from the urban areas. And also the low speed winds or the temperature inversion will trap the pollutants close to surface, worsening the air quality even more. And this is frequent in the winter months, which leads to smog formation in the city of Delhi, which you repeatedly see in the news during the winter season. So these are the different topics you can refer to, similar topics. So here in this video, we have discussed 10 articles in total from the Hindu, the Indian Express and the PIB. We'll be back again with another video tomorrow. Thank you.